What they forget is you're still a person. You still live day to day. Yeah. And that's why the lifestyle design to me is the most important thing is what are your goals? How are you working to obtain them? And then what do you want your Monday through Sunday to look like? Like, what do you want your day to day to look like?
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where I, Kyle, from Curtin Real Estate, interview local top dogs in the real estate investing, wealth building, and personal finance industries. Let's build together. What's up, guys? This week's guest on the podcast is doing some huge things in the real estate investing space in New Hampshire, as well as co-hosting an incredible entrepreneurship and financial freedom-focused podcast called Tell Us Why. Today, Mike shares an absolutely unreal amount of value and super actionable advice that you could start implementing today. In this episode, we get to chat about a collection of different topics for just about everyone, regardless of what stage you are at in your ventures. In this episode, we dig into starting with the end in mind, enjoying your lifestyle design while building, delegating those low dollar per hour tasks, and so much more. There is so much to take in this episode, and I hope you enjoy. Let's jump right into the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 64 of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Today, we get the great pleasure of chatting with Mike Ketchen, an absolutely amazing New Hampshire-based investor and co-host of the Tell Us Why podcast. What's going on, Mike? How's everything going, man? What's new?
Good, Kyle. Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to be here and love talking real estate, love talking some investing, and thank you for plugging the podcast. It's great to talk to another host as well.
Thank you very much, man. The pleasure is all mine. I was very excited to have you on.
All right.
Yeah.
So
we could kind of jump right in, So what kind of got you into real estate? Like, what's your backstory? What were your humble beginnings?
So to get into real estate, I was working education previously, and I was getting pretty burnt out in that. I worked in an urban school district that was pretty tough, and I was in an administration role as the dean of students. So I basically was in charge of all the discipline, attendance. If there was a problem, I had to solve it, which is beneficial because that's kind of what I enjoy doing, and it kind of translates to this. And we had basically turned around a school, hit our mission. They were going through some more changes now, reorging the district, all that stuff. And I was just burnt out. And at the same time, my wife was commuting to her job at MIT. We were not really seeing each other much, every day at that point. I gotta say that to be something else. I'll never forget. I was hanging out. I think I was like playing Madden with a buddy or something. And I heard about I wanted to flip a house. So figured I'll get a HELOC, flip a house. I discovered, Biggerpockets, and happened to be their episode 200. And from there just kind of got rolling. And fast forward, it's been almost 5 years. We've got a little under 300 units, 5 Airbnbs, have done a bunch of flips, and you name it, and here we are.
That's awesome, man. Oh my God.
Thank you, man. Thanks.
I really like that too, about going from that kind of role, especially, like a kind of a firefighter, if you will.
Yeah.
And translating that over to real estate, which definitely is not all sunshines and rainbows all the time.
No, it is. No, it is not. No, it is. And that's so important to hit on, because what happens is, social media really romanticizes a lot of this, and it is great. Listen, there's tremendous perks to this, but I think those perks show up around lifestyle design and financial freedom and other concepts. Not necessarily this, but if you go on, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, I mean, you name it, and there's so many just like disingenuous kind of nonsense that gets pushed, what we associate with wealth, if you will. And that's why I think podcasts like yours are so important. What we're trying to do with Tell Us Why is really kind of show the truth. Like, hey, there really is real money to be made. There really is financial freedom. But it doesn't mean, showing up in like a Lambo every day with, blowing cash. Like, I've now bought deals, negotiated, have people on my phone I can call with net worths of a couple $100 million. and none of them live like it's so disconnected from what we associate with. It's just fascinating to me. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. You know, like it really is crazy. Like, you know, the stuff that society kind of views as wealthy. You know, the stereotypical, exactly, like the Lambos and mansions and the girls and like, you know, this, that, the other. And it's crazy, man. You know, and then, you know, to see some of the people even around us, you know, like investors, like especially around our kind of necks of the woods, you know, are doing some pretty big things and live the same way that we do. You know, like I really love that, like humble, you know.
At the end of the day, I think my wife said it best, and she actually said it to me recently because we were thinking, because you know, I mentor and coach a lot of people, and what they romanticize is they think of the big events, and there are big events. You know, hey, we travel a lot, we do that. I mean, those are big events. But what they forget is you still a person. You still live day to day, and that's why the lifestyle design to me is the most important thing. Is what are your goals? How are you working to obtain them? And then what do you want your Monday through Sunday to look like? Like, what do you want your day-to-day to look like? Like a big goal, honestly, big goal early on. I still follow it. Was I said, when I left my job to do this full time, my first just like bucket list goal is that I'm never going to set an alarm clock again. I don't want alarm clocks. Nice. I want to wake up. Exactly. Yeah. Such a small thing, right? Such a small microcosm. How many of us, though, are not in control of our own time with when we wake up?
Oh, totally.
And when you start shifting your thinking that way and start thinking, I want total control, I want, you know, total accountability, good, bad, lifestyle design, with small goals, they start to steamroll and you snowball into bigger goals. And it's just shifting your thinking and kind of getting into that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, man. You know, like it does sound like so small, but like it's such a big thing. You know, I feel that, man. Like I'm up at 4 o'clock every day for my day job. You know what I mean? Like, and like half the time I'm turning over and trying not to be too late for work. You know what I mean? I totally get where you're coming from, you know, like it's such a much bigger thing, you know, and like, it's like a lot of that small kind of stuff, you know, that if you can just be able to kind of do your own thing or like, you know, sleep in a couple more hours or something, like it's, you know, could translate, you know, to a much higher level of happiness.
Hey,
like
those small victories will help you win the war. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
definitely, man. So what's kind of your drive and your vision for the long term? That was kind of a nice transition.
No. So we are, everything we do is very goal oriented, if you will. Yeah. And I just turned 37, and the goal has been for a while. My business partner, there's 3 of us who own the company. Mm-hmm. Me, Matt, and Matt Hitchcock, my business partner, and my wife Hannah. And he threw something out there. Maybe after 2 years of doing this, when we weren't really full, we were just thinking about full time. It was just kind of exciting to be doing it. And he threw a number out there of 6 figures passively a month for each one of us. And I remember being like, dude, like crazy. I don't need that to live on now. I'm very comfortable. And, you know, but then I stopped and I said, you know what? You know, why not? Why not have a goal that's so ambitious, but I want to do it my way. I want to design the time freedom. I want the systems. I want everything. So we really sat down. Well, now fast forward 3 years later, you know, fortunately that goal seems obtainable. And it's also coinciding with, I said, by the time I'm 40, I will be a consultant in my own company. Yeah. So even the decision-making, the clarity that comes with that, we've recently added this year 2 team members. I've been recruiting these guys. I said to these 2 gentlemen 3 years ago, I said, I want you both to come run my company someday. Fast forward 3 years later, they're now both working with us. And the goal is to give them and build with them and have them understand what we're doing so we can step away. So now we're laying that framework, right? So 2022 is really time to double up one more time and then double one more, and then I'm out of here. Yeah. So it kind of gives that kind of vision and that drive and really kind of chase that down. And you have that clarity behind your decision making to try to obtain that goal, if you will.
I love that, man. Definitely. And that's something that I kind of want to stem on for a second is like learning like the delegation and like being able to step into those like higher level higher level roles, you know, for your business and stuff, like to keep working towards that vision. It really is crazy, man. Like, I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
I actually, so for the podcast, actually, it's kind of cool, actually, you know, because guys, you know, like Mike said, he is a co-host of a phenomenal podcast as well.
Thank you.
And, yeah, so basically, like, for a while, I've wanted to hire out like the editing and stuff of this podcast to somebody else, you know,
Yep.
because like I'm a real estate agent as well, like part-time, like with my day job. And basically, you know, it would take up like at least 4 or 5 hours on like a Sunday, you know, of like trying to run it through my computer, and like my computer's about to blow up and everything. And like, you know, trying to get it to load on our internet and stuff and upload, you know, for the next day. And it was a nightmare in the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But like recently, I've wanted to hire like a virtual assistant for a long time, like somebody from like, you know, like the Philippines or, you know, somewhere like that, that's a lot more experienced in editing and stuff than I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I didn't really want to be like a graphic designer or anything. Like that's, you know,
Yep.
really far away from anything that I wanted to do. But, you know, I ended up hiring a guy recently, you know, and was able to kind of, you know, get my processes in place, like that I've been doing for a while, give those off to him, and, you know, still tell him, be like, hey man, like, you know, I know, you know, you do this all the time. Like, I want you to kind of put your spin on it, you know, and like kind of do it the way you want to, like his kind of like the main vision, but I want you to kind of include like some of your stuff, you know, and like we can talk about it, we can figure it out and go back and forth. And he's actually like fully edited a couple episodes for me, and like, you know, freed up like entire days, and like,
Well,
it's still like super at its infancy, but
yeah, and what you just said is so important. If we're going to unpack that for a second, right, on multiple layers to what you just said there. So one, if you can't monitor it, you can't manage it, right? But at the same time, the big thing is people, we have to get comfortable with tough conversations, because you cannot fully trust someone, and you cannot get time freedom if you can't trust someone to perform. Because what you just said right there is so impactful, right? If you're going to hire someone to do a job, let them do the job.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to hold them accountable to your vision. But at the same time, you got to allow them to flourish, right?
Exactly.
Too often we bottleneck ourselves. More importantly, though, I want to stay with the other thing you just said. So you're building your brand, you're getting out there. You understood, you saw the problem area. And this is where, again, we get in our own heads a lot of times. And, you know, you've heard the saying, I'm sure, and you've had guests say it, you're either swinging the hammer, writing the check.
Yeah.
And what people often confuse with is they don't value their own time enough, right? So you just said something earlier. You said, hey, I'm an agent, I'm an investor, I got a day-to-day. If you got one deal or one commission or anything with that Sunday, instead of editing those 4 hours, you compounded that return, right? And when you look through that lens, if you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you continue to edit the podcast.
Exactly.
And people will look at it and say, oh, you know, he's paying this guy, whatever you're paying him, 25, 50 bucks an hour, whatever it is, I don't care. Yeah. So what we came up with to work through that framework is it's almost like picture like an hourglass, okay? In the middle is your $100 an hour tasks. Then below that, in the middle is your $1,000 an hour task. Then below that, you got your 100, you got your $10 an hour tasks. Of that, you got your 10,000, your 100,000, and your $1 million tasks. I try to stay in the 100,000 and $1 million an hour tasks.
Yeah.
And then people look at that and they go, oh, you're crazy. It's not that much. I said, well, hold on a second. I've now scaled. We have a $40 million real estate portfolio. We flipped houses. We sold a house last Friday that there was a little niche. There was a little code, loophole that we found in Massachusetts where we bought 2 properties in the same lot, split the lot, and just sold them off. We made $180,000, and I never even basically went to the properties. We did nothing but move paper around.
Yeah.
It took me maybe, call it 20 hours total. So what's your ROI on that, right?
Exactly.
Well, people struggle thinking about those bigger numbers because they seem gargantuan. Yeah. When in reality, if you shift your thinking and you start paying attention to what you're giving your time to, and you put systems in place, and you tell yourself, I'm the $10,000 an hour task, I'm the $100,000 an hour task, and you put yourself in that position to do it, you can really get to that mindset. But you have to be willing to delegate. You have to take the time to create the systems. You have to lay the foundation, but then you also have to step back and allow that to flourish with you in the background. So you're working on the 10,000, 100,000, and $1 million an hour tasks.
Yeah, I absolutely love that analogy too, man. That hourglass, like that's crazy. It's so true though. You know what I mean? And like, it was something that was really tough. And like I said, like I've wanted to do it for probably almost a year. And I'm like, oh no, like that's going to take, way too much time. Like I don't have that kind of time. Like, I'm looking for my own house and like, trying to do work stuff here and there. And like, that's going to take a whole nother thing, to hire somebody and manage everything. Yeah. And then when I actually sat down to do it, like everything changed. Like everything like just totally went off, and like I said, like this is definitely still at its infancy, but like it made me just like realize something. Like it was like a punch to the face, man. Like, whoa, like where are the other areas, of real estate and stuff, and like, just other stuff in general, can I bring in like a virtual assistant or like somebody to delegate? Or like literally like it made more sense, like I wrote up, I don't know if you've read Traction by Gino Wickman at all. Perfect. All right. So I absolutely love that operating system. I'm super fascinated with like the vision sheet and everything. And I wrote up like a vision sheet for the podcast. And, I literally like looked at it from like a whole nother angle after I was able to delegate out like a big part of it. Like now I'm looking at like, doing things like in advance a couple weeks and like a lot more social media out here. And like literally everything changed because I was able to just like give that to somebody else, have it get done much better than I could do. And yeah, I mean, I'm paying for it, but it's freeing up a hell of a lot of time. And like you said, like if you're able to get into like any of those tasks that are, much more of a return per hour. So, like as an agent or like out deal hunting or whatever, like it's 110% worth it.
Break it down to an example in its most simplistic form that anybody can relate to.
Yes.
People will cut their own lawn rather than pay someone $40. Yet they'll go to work for $100 or $120 an hour, $150 an hour. Okay, so why would you not work the extra hour and make the extra $90, $100? You know what I mean? Like it's very simplistic when you look at it that way, and it just always kind of resonated with me. And you said something there in Traction that's very impactful, but also gets lost, right? So we overthink things. Anybody can buy Traction. Anyone can implement and monitor the systems. Yet, why do we continue to have inefficiencies? Because people won't do the work.
You're right.
You said it took you a year to execute. Once you executed, you're already bearing the fruit. But again, we tend to think too big. We tend to get in our own way. So it's very important to align our focus, aim small, take it step by step, chunk those goals, put together that framework and work towards those items so they not only become actionable, they also become obtainable. And then we can be intentional with our actions and we can obtain those goals.
I love that, man. It's so true. And like now I'm like totally kicking myself for not just jumping into this like 6 months ago. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. Like I could have made my life 10 times easier, man. Like, and it's like it's something as small as that, and like it like I thought it was way harder than it ended up being, you know what I mean? And like anybody can do it. Like you said, like you just have to, like have the vision and like take the action and like just do it, like figure it out on the way. And like, it just like, I was almost like pissed, like that it wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it was. I'm like, oh, like, why the hell didn't I do that a long time ago? Or like,
why did I wait all this time? Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, you did it now, which is the important part.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't know. I feel like that's, something that like affects a lot of people and in a lot of different areas of their life. It's like, just like trying to take the action and like, if you fall flat, like that's fine, as long as you learn from it. And then, when you go back the second time, like the first time's thing isn't going to happen, and like that's kind of a principle that really sticks with me is like, if you're jumping into something for the first time, you're kind of building like a baseline, I guess you could say. And like, if things go okay, or if you fall completely flat, like whatever, like it might not happen on the first time, but as long as you learn from it, like when you keep coming back over and over again, like it's just eventually you're gonna get what you want. Like
yeah, it's hard to fail when you're persistent.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just one of those things. Like it's, but yeah. So, Mike, would you mind, kind of telling the story of how you acquired like that first property, like, kind of did that first flip?
Yeah, that's a hell of a story. We had looked at, so we decided, let me back it up. We decided we're going to, flip a house.
Yeah.
Listening to every podcast. I tend to have an obsessive personality, so I'm going down the rabbit hole. I'm trying, and Matt's excited and Han's excited. And, we're all very much into it. And looking. Nothing's making sense. Nothing's working, which in the time, plenty of them probably did. We didn't know what the hell we were looking for. But I come across Craigslist, which is one of the places. I actually bought 3 properties off Craigslist, which is funny. There was this house in Kennebunkport, which I hadn't even heard of, but I went to college with someone who lived in Kennebunk. And I was like, oh, I think I remember that being a rich area. middle of a snowstorm. We drive from Wentworth by the Sea, which is like in like the lakes region of New Hampshire, the mountain region, all the way over, me, Matt, and Hannah to this house. And we walk in, and I mean, it's terrible. There's mold on the walls. There's, things are dilapidated, but the bones were good. And I only felt like the bones were good because we had looked at so many in the last 3-4 months leading up to that, that I'm like, we got to move on this now. So we pulled the trigger, didn't know what the hell we were doing. We had a $40,000 HELOC on our primary house. Matt's parents were our first private investor, which that becomes a pivotal point later on. And I tell people, and even to this day, how we've scaled to 40 million using these same principles. Yeah. Where they were going to give us a $50,000 personal loan to help obtain it. I heard an ad for a company on Biggerpockets, which, funny enough, they never got back to me, but their competitor did. So we ended up doing our first few loans with one of those, I call them private lenders. They're not really hard money lenders. They're not really banks, like in between.
Yeah.
No idea what the hell we were doing. Had no idea. I mean, I made so many mistakes. Long story short, we got it under contract. We still own it today. We got it under contract for $300,000, and as is, it appraised at $450,000. So we were like, "Hey, this seems good."
We did it.
Fast forward, we spent 4 months on it, and at the time, this is what Airbnb is becoming a quote thing. This is 2017, and didn't know what the hell we were doing, but we said, "Man, maybe we don't want to sell this. Maybe we should rent this. This Airbnb thing sounds pretty cool." Lenders didn't even hear about Airbnb. So stubbornly, again, me and Matt are stubborn. That's why he's such a great business partner. I'm lucky to have him. We called like over 100 lenders. We finally found one through a connection he had to sit down with us. She said, "Sure, I'll count future income. Sure, I'll count Airbnb. Sure, I'll do this, I'll do that." Couldn't believe it. And it's actually, I wish lenders have tightened up so much even in that short time frame. We just got lucky, but it's why your relationships are important. In 4 months, we renovated this whole thing. We were up there on weekends. We were running a crew. We went through this whole thing, soup to nuts. And we put in about $150,000. It refied out. It appraised at $800,000. We walked out of the closing with a check with a surplus of like $162,000. And I looked at Matt and Hannah and I said, "This is what we're going to do from now on." And we didn't know, and we had to figure it out. And I mean, even within that deal, there's so many stories. I mean, the first GC we hired was so much cheaper than everyone else. And we decided, we knew he had a bad rep, but we said he's so much cheaper that what's the worst he can do? Even if we fire him, we'll be in the black so much it doesn't matter. Well, then I'll tell you what he did. There was a domestic at the property. He was shooting guns in the woods. We had to fire him. I got a call from a jail cell. Oh yeah. All sorts of fun stuff. But again, you have to push through and take action.
Yeah.
So we found a couple more guys to finish the job. One of them, my stepfather, a buddy of his, they worked 7 days a week for 7 straight weeks to hit our deadline with our first renter coming in. Another important moment on why always get an opinion and do your research, but do your own research. We brought through, remember, this is 2017. Airbnb is not that big yet. So people were still booking like on traditional websites and calling locals. So we called the local property management expert in Kennebunkport. She walks the property and she goes, "Oh, I think when you're fixed up, you'll be fortunate to get $400 a night here." Today, I get $800 a night at that property. So if we had listened to her and let someone else dictate our fate, it would have cost us to this point hundreds of thousands of dollars. That house just reappraised at $1 million, right? We've done that multiple times. Yeah. And it kind of set the course, and it's kind of funny how everything happens for a reason. So we made a tremendous amount of mistakes. We rolled up our sleeves. We got dirty. We figured it out. And it kind of laid the framework for where we're at with that first one that kind of catapulted. But yeah, that was the first deal we did.
Wow. Talk about getting in with both feet, man.
You know what? It's one of those things, like, you know, you got to take action and you got to be decisive. And people think investing is risky. I'll tell you what I think is risky. I think trading your time for someone else's money and making someone else a fortune, or living on the weekends, or being miserable every day, I think that's risky. That's what I think is risky. And I've yet to be the person at the end of life who says, you know what I regret? I regret taking that risk. No, it's always the opposite, right? So it goes back to changing the way we think and changing the way we look at risk and opportunity and going from there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Even like, you know, thinking about the concept of like, you know, if you're working like a 40-hour-a-week job, like spending more time like at work than you do at home. And like, if you're miserable at your day job, then like what the hell are you doing? You know, and like, it's like the amount of people that live that life is crazy. And it's just not.
Well, I'm going to be brutally honest, and hopefully I don't ruffle too many feathers, but it's really dawned on me recently, and I believe it more and more. You know, we as people like to tend to say that we value honesty and we value integrity, we value character. What I'm starting to realize is most of us is just a bunch of fucking liars. And what I mean by that is, if we were honest with ourselves, okay, we would take total accountability of every element of our life. We would take total accountability of our decision making. We would be empowered to make change, right? When someone comes to you and tells you they're taking a risk, what do people tend to say? They don't say, man, that's awesome, man, you're going to crush it. They say, oh, you're crazy. How do you leave the safety, right? Think about that. We need to change the way we frame these. We need to change the way we look at these, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Empower each other to build towards those goals. But that's just my thoughts. You know?
No, I totally agree, man. You know, and like I feel like a big part of that is, you know, kind of who you surround yourself with.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I feel like that's a really crucial part.
Negative people, I'm telling you, negative people, that's a cancer you have to cut out immediately. If someone is negative, you can't change them, but you can change the time you spend with them. Yeah. And you need to take, again, that total accountability piece. I preach it, because if someone, that is such an energy drain, that is such an energy suck, you can't combat that. You know, you're not going to change that person. It's not your job to change them. You got to control yourself, and you got to get yourself out of that situation. And if you're looking at the people you're spending time with, and you feel like you're the smartest one or the most accomplished, or, you know, you really kind of hit that ceiling, sometimes you have to have those tough conversations. You have to level up, and you have to kind of keep pushing yourself until you hit your goals and you're where you want to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I feel like that is, you know, that can be kind of a really tough thing to do. And like me kind of being on the less experienced side, I guess you could say, you know, it's a little hard, you know, because a lot of people, like, exactly like, you know, like you just said, like you tell them what you're doing, and like they're like, dude, like that's super risky, like why the hell are you doing that, you know? And like it's
Kyle, not to cut you off, but these are the same people, right? Okay, this is what pisses me off. Yeah. These are the same people who will go home, binge watch Netflix 4 nights a week, play Call of Duty the other 3 nights a week, all right, live in an apartment that they complain about how expensive it is, and then wake up, work a job they hate, and then never do a damn thing about it. And they're going to tell you what you're doing is risky. No, exactly. They're terrified to fail. They're terrified to take control of their own life. And that's what's risky. You know, give me that nonsense. Sorry. Get me going here, Kyle.
No, I totally agree, man. You know, and like, I feel like it's like, do you think some people are just like way more comfortable than others? And like, they're just like, they just don't want to like even like try to improve, like, you know, like they're more comfortable just like.
Well, you gotta think about it, right? So when you're going against the grain, it's hard, right? So say someone's 30, okay? We'll stay with the simple number. Someone's 30, they want to make a decision. Well, if they're programming up to that point, their education, their circle of comfort, their trust, their friends, their family, their parents, all that stuff, has framed thinking in a certain way for 30 years, you got to think about just like things compound positively, they compound negatively. Yeah. You have to think about from that perspective how you're trying to unravel that. And that is why, that's what I said earlier, when you start to be honest with yourself, that is when you will make a change. Because no one is going to motivate you like you're going to motivate yourself. And until you buy in mentally, right, nothing in life is that complicated. We have, fortunately, I mean, you can YouTube anything, right? Yeah. So why don't we all do it? Well, we all don't do it because we don't want to commit to doing it. It's hard, right? It's not easy. But that's why I don't necessarily know if it's that people are scared or people are comfortable. It's a combination of everything. I think it's really when you're programmed and you've been taught one way for so long. And then think about it, right? If there's no entrepreneurs in your family, if none of your friends are doing any of this, if there's no one to really call and you got a decent salary, you're pretty happy, you watch football on Sundays, you go to the trivia on Tuesdays, whatever the hell people do, I have no idea. And, who's going to inspire you to make a change until you want to do it yourself? And then when you get inspired, all the people around you don't have the answers. They're not doing anything different. You have to go out and seek that. I was so fortunate. I say it all the time. My greatest gift is that my business partner, Matt, who's also a friend, like a brother, and my wife is also an investor in the business. It couldn't have worked out better for the three of us because we had our own circle. You know what I mean? And that kind of gives you that protection and that backbone and, and that teamwork element,
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more, man. And like, I feel like it's almost like you said, like it seems like it's just kind of like a self-awareness kind of game of like, if everybody around you like isn't really into that kind of thing or, are just like more comfortable, just kind of doing like the working their 40-hour jobs and like, not being happy and whatever, and like just enjoying the weekends and stuff. Like if they're comfortable with that and like you're striving for bigger things, like you said, like I feel like you just have to like be self-aware enough to be like, all right, like, I have to find the people that have done what I want to do and then some, and start hanging more around those guys, to level yourself up, and be able to have that support and support the people around you. And it's crazy, like I'm just starting to kind of see the impact of like, well, really see the impact, of who you surround yourself with, like on a little bit of a bigger level than what I was used to before, like it's like really a big deal,
it's, you know what? It's lonely too. And when you're going towards something that few people are doing, well, there's a reason few people are doing it. Yeah. So you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. They don't just say that to say that. You have to have such conviction and belief in where you're going and how you're going to get there that, that's the only way. I mean, if you can't bet on yourself, if you can't buy into yourself, like we say it all the time, right? Bet on yourself. Well, what that really means is having enough conviction to say basically a giant fuck you to everybody else. I'm going to do this on my terms. I'm going to do it my way, and nothing's going to stop me. Yeah. And you have to get in that mindset, right? Because that's going to have to motivate you, because there's going to be times when you're doubted. There's going to be times you don't have the answers. There's going to be times it's not easy. You have to be able to push through and bet on yourself encapsulates that. And that's what we mean when we say that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, man. Like you just have to kind of be in your own head, because
absolutely.
Like it's like even now, actually, I'm by the time this episode posts, I might be closed on my first 3 family. I'm not sure yet, but literally, man, like the entire process, like was an absolute nightmare. For me, like going through it, and like literally, like the past, probably a little over a month, literally, like every single thing has gone wrong. Like inspection, appraisal, like, we had to rebuttal the appraisal twice, and then it got changed to FHA and another FHA appraisal. Like everything was a nightmare. And like, this was like definitely on the newer side of things to me, and like, just like the mental strain, like it took on me, like was ridiculous. It was,
hold on though. Stay with what you just said though.
Okay.
It took a strain on you. It was ridiculous. Yeah. But you're about to close on it. And guess what? Those battle scars are now your scars. And that experience is now your experience. So when you come up for air from this grind you've been in on this transaction, it's done. You've got it now, right? And that starts to compound because you didn't quit, because you had persistence, because you pushed through. It's not rocket science. It's grit. It's taking action. It's execution. And that's the stuff that show up. And you'll be well on your way if you keep that mindset as you go forward.
It's tough, man. Like, I feel like that's something that isn't really talked about as much, is like kind of the mental game of like, yeah, I mean, you know, like we talk about, like everybody talks about mindset and stuff like that all the time, but like, you know, like just kind of staying level-headed, I guess you could say. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like it, you know, in the past couple of weeks, like it's literally just been hit after hit after hit, and like, you know, everything was kind of hitting the fan a little bit, and like, you know, just kind of seeing it for really like the first time, like especially, you know, kind of for me, like not for a client or anything, like it was hitting hard. And like, you know, like we were talking about earlier, like I feel like it stems back to being able to, you know, have those people to reach out to for support. And like, you know, like one of my friends, she, you know, is another investor and stuff, and like she's like really, you know, kind of got me through a lot of the BS, you know, that's been going on in the past couple of weeks. And like, you know, other people, like if you turn to the wrong people, you know, they might be like, oh, well, you know, maybe that's not the one for you. No. You know, like we're going to keep fighting until this thing's done, until we can't move forward.
Exactly. There's problem solvers and there's problem creators, and you got to solve it. You got to surround yourself with the problem solvers.
Yeah. And it sucks, man. Cause like there's a lot of problem creators out there, you know, like, especially like close.
They leave opportunities for us, you know, that's how it is.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm not gonna like name names or roles or anything, but like it was definitely a curve, you know, when people that are very close to you are not trying to steer you in the wrong direction, but maybe like just not really like prepared, or like, you know, want the best for you, and like, you know, they just don't really see things in the lens that you do. Like, I don't want to say like, you know, they don't want the best for you or whatever, but like they just don't see the bigger picture like you do. You
Absolutely.
know, like you're like trying to turn to them, you know, when things are hitting the fan, like that might actually make it worse. You know, like you have to turn to the right people, and like, you know, they'll be like, oh dude, like I dealt with that like, you know, a year ago, like 3 times, like you'll make it through. Don't worry about it. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, all right, this is a little bit better. You know,
I like it.
Like just going to the people that have done it before. You know, I'm like, dude, like I've been there. I did that. Like it'll be all right. Everything will be fine.
And it's common. Absolutely.
You know, it's crazy.
Mm.
So, Mike, what is the most important lesson that you have learned over your career so far?
Most important lesson I have learned over my career, I would say, really start with the end in mind. It shows up in your deal analysis. It shows up in your decision making. It shows up in your goal setting. It shows up in your teamwork. It shows up in your management, your monitoring. And if you know essentially where you're going, right? And it can change, it can adapt over time, but really understanding what you're trying to obtain with crystal clear focus, and then working backwards, step by step, and making it manageable, making it obtainable. I would definitely say that that's my best piece of advice.
I love that, man. I was listening to the Biggerpockets podcast this morning or yesterday morning, and they were talking about, Brandon said something that was very interesting, and it was or it might have been one of the guests, I forget, but somebody was saying to like quote unquote like write your eulogy. And like the E-Myth by Michael Gerber talks about this as well.
Yeah.
You know, and like seeing it for the first time, it's like, whoa, like dude, what the hell? But like after you dig into it a little bit more, it's like, I feel like that's like a really interesting point, you know, to be like, oh, like, you know, what do you want people to say about you? Like, what did you do in your life? Like this is the end. Like you can't go anymore. Like this is as far as you can get. So like if you can take this and be like, oh, you know, like Michael, you know, was like an amazing guy. Like he showed like 1 million people how to be investors and like changed them and their families' lives, and like, you know, built this huge portfolio. And like, that's what you want to do. Like, I feel like it gives you a really good point to just keep reverse engineering it and be like, oh, well, what do I have to do in the next 5 years, in the next year, in the next 12 months, next week, day, fucking hour, you know what I mean? Like,
and we call that, again, throwing back to education, it was a term, chunking. Okay. So you've got this big, massive goal, but then you can break it down into so small. I mean, you can literally break it down as much as what I'm doing today. And when you break it down into those minute details, it gives you clarity because, again, suddenly everything is obtainable. It's not overwhelming, right? And you feel empowered when you make progress. So by checking those things off as you do it step after step after step, I like to use the analogy, you'll put your head down, you'll grind through these steps, you'll come up for air 6 months into a year and go, wow, look how much ground I covered. We tripled in size this year. We basically doubled and doubled again. And I actually feel at the end of the year like it wasn't that crazy of a year. And it was because it was where we were going, we knew where we were going. We had broken it down in so many steps. It never really felt overwhelming. You know what I mean? And I go back to it's just the way we think in our decision making. And again, having great team members and partners, Yeah.
I love that, man. Like, I feel like that's something that I'm definitely still trying to figure out, is like trying to keep things from becoming overwhelming, by like taking that goal and like, having that like really small, or what's it called? Daily consistent action. That's what I was thinking. And just boiling it down, like to not, like killing yourself every day. And like, eventually, like you said, like it will compound and everything. And, all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, wow, like that's a little bit more than I thought.
Absolutely.
Like tracking it the whole way and everything. And it's interesting.
Oh yeah.
So, Mike, do you like time block and stuff like that, or this is just me asking?
I've experimented with all that. To be honest, I'm kind of a gift and a curse with myself, and what I mean by that is, I want to be better at some of that stuff, but I'm so obsessive with everything I'm doing that I don't just stop thinking about it. So what I mean with that's a gift and a curse is I can be a little bit cleaner with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, when I get it right, but conversely, I'm so like, I just don't turn off. I just don't, I don't know how to explain it in any way. It's like my personality, which is God bless all my friends and my family for dealing with it. It's like when I'm into something, like it'll be 11 o'clock at night and I'll be texting people and I'll be like, hey, what about this? And it's like, dude, really? Like, it's Wednesday at midnight. Like no one cares about like your 12 unit value app, but it's so there are a lot of techniques like that, I do believe. But for me, honestly, I'm my wife would be someone better to ask that too, because she's a super organized, detailed one. I'm just kind of a visionary and typical entrepreneur. I'm go, yeah. Details. But then what I do is surround myself with people who are really complimentary of my weaknesses. And I kind of handle it that way.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you, man. Like, I've always like really liked the concept of time blocking, but like, every day is just like kind of so different, Like,
it's individual, If you're a very organized person who's going to need that to get going, that's your way. My way of dealing with it is it goes on my calendar, and I just think through it obsessively. I mean, it's all, we're all arriving at the same place because there's a system. The system and the process is the important thing, is what I would say.
Yeah, I like that a lot, man. Definitely.
Go.
Ooh, I love this one. How do you define wealth? I know we kind of talked about it a little, but
I define, in my definition, the way I look at it is the true combination of time and financial freedom. And that's why, I like to talk about one of my really, good friends, my oldest friend, say he's the most successful guy I know. And he's far and away not the paper richest guy I know, but he's designed a life where he essentially does what he wants, lives the way he wants, and enjoys his time how he wants every day. Every day. I don't necessarily agree with the way he does all the stuff, but he's so comfortable with the way he's doing it. I mean, what's the point? If we all want, like I have, my goals, my company's goals, all that, but I'm very comfortable where I'm at now. So I guess I would define, like I know people who might have a higher net worth, whatever. But if they're not happy, if they're not making decisions and living the way they want, I wouldn't define that as wealthy. I'd say they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, money is the minute I'll tell anybody this, and I'll stand by this. The minute you start making real money, the minute, once we became millionaires, if you will, nothing really changed. It is what it is. So money is such a weak motivator, right? And I grew up poor. So when I was a kid, I thought, money's the big thing. Well, it's because you don't have it. The minute you get it, you realize it's not.
What? Yeah.
It just can't fuel the fire as much as you think it can. Yeah. In my opinion.
I think that's super interesting. It's just really interesting, like the relationship or like the principle of money itself. You know what I mean? Like, we all like struggle like to get it so bad and everything, like just to like give it away again. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, like once you're making it, great. But like, and like we were talking about a little bit earlier, like staying humble and like, keeping your say in life, and
absolutely
blowing it on stupid stuff and, and like,
well, and that goes back to the definition of wealth and the lifestyle design. It all, you'll hear me bring up these things full circle, starting with the end in mind.
Yeah.
We know what we want, right? I want to be able to travel, which I do all the time. I want to be able to bounce around from my Airbnb properties, which support my travel lifestyle, which I do all the time. I want to be able to problem solve with scale within business. I like that. I do that all the time. It's all lifestyle design. It's all starting with the end. So now it's just trying to scale that and build that bigger and bigger to the point where, how big do you go? We want to make, $100K a month a piece. Okay. Well, once we hit that, I don't know. And again, at that point, I think it just compounds, but to your point, okay, well now what? Like what is the next thing? And that's when we'll do the same process again. We'll have that goal and we'll say, okay, well now we'll do this, we'll do that. But that to me is wealth. It's that design and living life through that design, a design that you create, Yeah.
And there was actually the guest that that's going to be posted next week. The guest that I interviewed right before you, he made a pretty good point actually, talking about that same exact thing. And like, if you look at some of like the richest people in the world, right? Like Bill Gates, like Mark Zuckerberg, like, all those like crazy, uber wealthy kind of people. Why do they keep working and keep building? They got all the money in the world. Like you could just call everything quits. You don't have to do a thing for the rest of your life. Your kids, their kids, like nobody has to do anything if you don't want to. But why are they still continuing to work?
Because the passion, the hunger, the creativity, the need to contribute, the need to have a purpose is still there.
It's bigger,
right? And that's, yes, you're spot on, and that's exactly what it is. You're always going to be doing something. I could sit on a beach every day and do nothing if I wanted that now. And I laugh when people say it. The only people who say that are people who can't do it.
Yeah.
I have yet to be the person who can sit on a beach every day who chooses to sit on a beach every day. Because you didn't get there by sitting on a beach every day. You're not wired in that way. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's bigger than that.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable. And like that was something that really hit me in a different place. Was like, oh well, like it's almost like, like how big can we take this? So like, what other projects and stuff can I start? Like, like it's bigger than that. Like how can I help more people out and like, just give more value out? Like I already have the money thing figured out. Like great, but like now what? Like what else can we do? Like what can we build?
100%. And that's what it's all about, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's such a crazy concept. Like something that I, kind of live by is like, basically I call it kind of like continuing the cycle. So basically like, you learn like real estate investing or like, how to build a business or, whatever your kind of forte is, from all these people and books and podcasts and YouTube and everything. Like, I feel like it's extremely important to be able to like, learn that, like do your thing and then be able to bring up other people with you, and like kind of continue the cycle and like, be able to teach that to like all these other people and like bring them up too. And like, you just have to keep it going.
Absolutely.
Like keep the value going. And like, it's so much bigger than the money, man. Like it's crazy.
Spot on, Kyle. Spot on.
It's nuts.
All right.
Ooh. So, Mike, I got one more question for you here, man. Do you read? And what is your favorite business, investing, or real estate book that you would recommend to anyone?
Yeah, I'm an avid reader. Read books, also audiobooks, podcasts. I mean, you name it. I just think we are living in the greatest time ever. The amount of opportunity we have is abundant. I mean, it's insane. So staying with that, the one I always like to shout out is MJ DeMarco. He's got a bunch of good books, Millionaire Fastlane, Unscripted, Escape the Rat Race, or The Great Rat Race, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And I like it because it's really no nonsense. It's really right in your face. And it will really tell you if you're truly ready to bet on yourself, you're truly ready to become an entrepreneur, a business owner, investor full-time. Yeah. That book will resonate with you. If that book doesn't resonate with you and you're not comfortable with someone being that aggressive, that assertive and telling you, I think you need to really evaluate where you're at mentally when you get to it. And I just think it's very obtainable. And I think a ton of things that I got out of the book that I still apply in my everyday investing, in my everyday business and decision-making. And I think MJ does a great job, and I would highly recommend him. And of course, some of the stuff we've met, some of the collaborators we've met, along the way, just so much out there. Anything you need today, you can find.
That's huge, man. I haven't read any of his books. I'll have to put them on my list.
MJ DeMarco I hope to get him on Tell Us Why someday. We've been talking a little bit on Instagram behind the scenes, so I hope to get him on.
Yeah, that would be incredible. That's actually a really great transition. I kind of wanted to talk about your podcast a little bit, man. Tell us a little bit about that and how you guys started and. Yeah, phenomenal, guys. You definitely
thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that. And staying with that, back to goal setting and making things real. Actually, just recently, we have an episode coming out on goal setting. I was going through an old computer bag and I found a notebook that I wrote down my goals at the end of 2019 for 2020. And 2 years later, we crushed everything on that list. And the top of the page was "Tell us why." Then it had a question mark because apparently I don't know grammar. Podcast. And I talked to Jack, who I met through a mastermind, my coach, Jack Dalrymple, another real estate investor. And the whole idea was to try to basically build a community around people's whys. What is your why? What makes you passionate? That why is really the thing that will help you push through, and it will change with you as you grow. It'll change. It'll evolve. And it wasn't just going to be real estate. It wasn't just going to be investing. We wanted to do financial education and education and entrepreneurs and business owners and big time investors, retired investors, new investors. Resources, and it's really kind of come together. And we hope we're adding value to the community we're trying to build. The website just went live. Feel free to check it out. TellUsWhyPodcast.com. And like I said, that's really the community we're building, and we're pretty passionate about it. And I'm enjoying having a good time, and I'm sure Jack is too. When he's not messing up on one of the recordings, we're giving him a hard time. But we're on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, name it, and we'd love to have you guys all check it out.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'll definitely drop everything down below. So are you guys just kind of focusing on New Hampshire, or kind of all around?
No, we're going nationwide. We're going international. We're doing a couple webinars that have been very well received. We've had people from all over on there. I'm going to be doing another one, a second part of Airbnb investing. We did one with my deal flow structure. Really, the goal is to try to bringing it back to education, my previous work previously. I don't do the victim mindset thing, but I do believe there is a lack of exposure to a lot of this stuff. The stuff that I'm doing now that I'm obtaining, I feel like if I had been exposed to this at a younger age, I would have got there sooner, and I want to share that with everybody. Because once you're exposed to it, your results will dictate your outcome. Your action will dictate your outcome. But if you don't know where to start or even what questions to ask, it's not really a level playing field. So we're trying to level that playing field is really what we're trying to do in any small way in which we can contribute, Yeah,
100%, man. I totally agree with you. It's almost like this stuff is really crazy, and you almost have to find it by accident, I guess. You almost just have to kind of stumble across it and why?
They're not teaching this in school, which is a problem. That'll be a whole nother hour. So we can't do that,
Yeah, but no, I totally agree with you, man. It's just, it's crazy, you know what I mean? And I don't know, like really strive to kind of tell like as many people as possible, like especially, you know, if they're on the younger side, about this kind of stuff, and like just kind of, you know, pass it over to them and be like, hey, like you gotta check this thing out, man. Like you might like it, you might not, but like here's something that's a little bit different that, you know, is a little untraditional, but you know, if it's for you, it's for you. You know, like,
I think that's great.
Really change things. It's important, man.
It really absolutely is. You're 100% spot on there.
You know, it's so much bigger, and like it's so attainable, you know what I mean? And like one of the really big eye openers for me was like how many people, well, when I first started kind of getting into this stuff, was like how many people around even like my area, you know, were into this kind of stuff on like a bigger scale. Like you look on like LinkedIn or Instagram or Biggerpockets or something, like you type in, like I'm from Tewksbury. So, you know, type in like Tewksbury, you know, investors, real estate, whatever. And like a whole list of people come up. You know, it's crazy. Like the amount of like investors and like entrepreneurs and like these people are everywhere, but like you have no idea unless like you're really looking for it.
Well, because they only start to feel everywhere once you start looking for it. You know what I mean? And it feels like when you're in this space, it feels like everyone's investing in real estate when in reality it's a tiny amount of people.
Yeah.
But it's because your mindset is switched and now you're looking for it. So you're seeing it, you know, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. Like it totally flip flops, you know, and like you see everything through the real estate lens now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, like, yeah. But yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on here, Mike. It was a real pleasure to have you on. You know, I love absolutely everything that you're doing, man. Doing some really crazy stuff, and yeah, you know, that was absolutely amazing. So sorry, we're on like social media and stuff. Can you the podcast?
Yeah. I would tell people, please feel free to check out tell us why __ on Instagram, telluswhypodcast.com. The Tell Us Why podcast. You can check us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. Click, like, subscribe, follow, give feedback, check it out. Come be part of this community. We're really trying to build something where everybody's involved. So it's ambitious. We're doing it. We have been doing it, and it's growing. We're very pleased with where we're at, and come be part of this journey with us.
Go check them out, guys. Go give it a listen. It's absolutely amazing. But
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much again, Mike. I'll talk to you soon, man. That was awesome.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right, take care. All right, guys, that concludes our Creating Wealth podcast episode for today. I want to thank every single person that has listened this far. It really means a lot to know that people can learn from me and with me as we build wealth together. Hopefully, you can take home at least one thing from this podcast that will improve your life just a little bit. If you could, please check me out on social. That's at Kyle Curtin Real Estate on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm on Biggerpockets. Until next time, let's build together.